So let's go ahead and talk about how we use significant figures in calculations. Now, because whenever we make a measurement, there's a certain amount of error involved, that means that we need to take into consideration that error whenever we're doing certain calculations. For example, if we take a certain amount of water that was measured in a graduated cylinder and we add it to a certain amount of water that was measured in a beaker, the uncertainty of the beaker is going to make it to where we aren't going to know the precise or as precise amount of water when we add those two together because it's a piece of equipment that isn't as precise as the graduated cylinder. So whenever we do calculations, we always have to keep in mind that. So let's go ahead and talk about the three things that we need to consider when doing calculations. The first thing we want to consider is when adding and subtracting, the answer of the answer must have the same number of decimal places as the measurement with the fewest number of decimal places. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that definition or that rule is somewhat incomplete, and we're going to look at that later. But essentially, if we take a number that has 3 decimal points and we add it to a number with 2 decimal points, then that means that the answer can only have 2 decimal points. And you can actually see that in this situation right here. This right here has 3 decimal points. This one right here has 2 decimal points, and this one right here has 4 decimal points. So when you add this together and you type it in the calculator will give you this amount here. However, because this value only has 2 decimal points, the answer can only have 2 decimal points. Now the same thing is true with subtracting. If you take a look, this has 1 decimal point, this has 3 decimal points, and then this one, when you type that in the calculator, will end up giving you 3 decimal points. But because this one right here only has 1 decimal point, the answer can only have 1 decimal point. However, why is it that this 5.679 becomes 5.7? The reason why it becomes 5.7 is because whatever this digit is, if it's above 5, if it's 5 and above, we will round up. And if it's 5 or if it's less than 5, we'll round down. So because this is greater than 5, we round this 6 up to a 7. Now let's go ahead and talk about multiplying and dividing. While adding and subtracting, the place value is what matters. Multiplying and dividing, it's the number of significant digits. Whatever number has the fewest number of significant digits is going to be the number that we use to determine how many significant digits the answer will have. And so let me go ahead and give you an example here. If you take a look and you type this into the calculator, it will give you this answer here. However, this has 4 significant digits. This has 3 significant digits. Now notice we care about the significant digits versus the place value. Because this has 3 significant digits, that means our answer can only have 3 significant digits. And so essentially what we need to do is we need to stop it right here. So I'm going to go ahead and write the answer here. Except I did something wrong, and so I want you to pause the video and I want you to think, what did I do wrong? What I did wrong was this 6 should actually be a 7. And the reason why is because this 9 rounds it up. And so we end up with 49.7 when we multiply these together. All right, so let's go ahead and go through this next one here. So this is 3 significant digits. This one right here has 4 significant digits because that 0 does not count. And so when we have 3 significant digits and we divide it by 4 significant digits, the one with the fewest significant digits is going to be the one that gives us the right answer, or the number is going to determine how many significant digits we end up with. And so again, 3 significant digits is what we should end up with. Now, this answer here will then end up being 46.4. Now notice how that 4 still remained a 4. Now I'm going to pause for a moment and just really point out that it's not the number of decimal places that matters, it's the number of significant digits. If you look at this particular one right here that has 2 decimal places, this one has 5 decimal places, yet this has 1 decimal place. So again, when we're multiplying and dividing, it's the number of significant figures. All right, let's go ahead and go through this one. This one is 4 significant figures. That 0 at the end does matter because there is a decimal. This one right here is going to have 6 significant digits. That first 0 doesn't matter, but the 3 zeros at the end do matter because there's a decimal. So because of that, this one is going to limit how many significant figures the answer should have. It should only have 4 significant figures, and if you take a look, it already has 4 significant figures. Now, I do want to go back real quick and talk about the third thing there. We're going to learn about conversion factors later, so when we get to that, I will discuss this. But conversion factors do not influence significant figures. And so again, when we get to that, we will talk about that later. Now let's go ahead and talk about what we do when we have both multiplying and addition and subtraction and all that, when we have a combination of both. Well, what we do is we consider our order of operations. What do we do first in this particular example? What we do first is we subtract. Now, when we're subtracting, what we do is we care about the number of decimal points, the place value. And so this one has 3 decimal points, this one has 2 decimal points, and so the answer should only end up with 2 decimal points. However, instead of rounding off that 9, what we're going to do is we're going to keep the 9 there because it will actually influence the calculation. And instead what we're going to do is we're going to underline to what decimal we would have rounded it off. Now, if we would have rounded it off to the hundredths place, this would be 2 significant digits, which is important. However, we're going to still keep that 9 there, but again, we're just considering the fact that we would have rounded it off to there. Now, when we multiply this together, it's going to end up giving us this number here. This has 3 significant digits. This one has 4 significant digits. And then this one right here, if we would have rounded off that 9, would have given us 2 significant digits. And so because of that, because this right here would have only had 2 significant digits, that's going to limit us to 2 significant digits in our answer, which is why we end up with 19. So again, if we're adding and subtracting, we care about the place value. If it goes to the tenths place, then we only record it to the tenths place. If one number is limited to the ones place, we would only record to the ones place. When it comes to multiplying and dividing, what we care about is the number of significant digits. And then later on, when we start talking about conversions, we will talk about how conversions don't influence the significant digits. And that's it.